Blood splattered across the medical bay floor as the creature thrashed against its restraints. Dr. Nira clicked her mandibles in frustration, watching the monitors flash red with warning signals. The Dravok was dying, and there was nothing she could do about it. Sedation ineffective, announced one of her assistants, a small, gray-skinned Quellan who kept his distance from the containment field. Heart rate increasing, internal bleeding worsening. Nira had seen many creatures in her 30 years as a veterinarian. Her insectoid brain processed information faster than most species in the galaxy. She had memorized every medical text, every procedure, every protocol. But protocols existed for a reason, and right now protocol said this animal was too dangerous to treat. The Dravok snarled, showing teeth the size of daggers. Its fur, matted with blood and dirt, stood on end. 6 powerful legs scraped against the metal floor, leaving deep gouges. This was an apex predator from Dravis 4, a death world where everything evolved to kill. 3 of these creatures had mauled their handlers to death just last year. Station regulations were clear. Dangerous animals in critical pain could not be approached. Humane termination was the only option. Contact the owner, Nira ordered. Inform them of our decision. Captain Roth pushed through the crowd of medical staff, his rocky Grensic features twisted with concern. You can't kill him. He saved my entire crew. Then you should have brought him here before he reached this state, Nira replied, her voice flat and logical. His pain has made him feral. Any attempt to treat him will result in staff casualties. I will not risk my team. There has to be something. There is not. Nira turned away from the containment field. Prepare the termination sequence. Wait. A new voice cut through the chaos. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. Dr. Ben Foster stood near the back of the medical bay, arms crossed, studying the thrashing Dravok with an expression Nira could not quite identify. The human had arrived at Station Harmony only 3 days ago, transferred from some backwater veterinary clinic on Earth. Nira had read his file with skepticism. Earth animals were simple compared to the diverse creatures found across the galaxy. What could this human possibly know that she did not? You have an objection, Dr. Foster? Nira asked. Ben stepped closer to the containment field, ignoring the gasps from other staff members. Yeah, I do. That animal isn't attacking. He's protecting himself. The distinction is irrelevant. He is too dangerous. Look at his eyes. Ben pointed at the Dravok. Really look at them. Nira clicked her mandibles in annoyance but activated her optical enhancers. The Dravok's eyes were wide, pupils dilated. His breathing came in rapid pants. His body posture. He is afraid, Nira realized aloud. Terrified, Ben confirmed, and in massive pain. See how he's guarding his left side? That's where the internal bleeding is. Every time he moves, it hurts worse, so he's lashing out at anything that comes near. It's not aggression. It's a panic response. Your observation changes nothing, Nira stated. Standard sedatives do not affect Dravok metabolism. We cannot approach him safely. Then let me try without sedatives. Silence fell across the medical bay. Several staff members stared at Ben as if he had announced plans to breathe vacuum. That is suicide, Nira said flatly. Maybe. Ben walked toward the control panel for the containment field. Or maybe I know something you don't. Human arrogance will get you killed. Human experience might save his life. Ben looked directly at Nira. I've worked with aggressive animals my whole career. I grew up around wolves, bears, animals that could tear me apart. But they didn't because I learned their language. Dravoks do not have language. All animals have language, Ben interrupted. You just have to know how to listen. Nira considered this. Humans were notorious across the galaxy for their strange relationship with dangerous creatures. They kept predators as companions. They rehabilitated animals other species deemed too violent. Their veterinary practices emphasized emotional connection over logical protocol. Nira had always viewed such methods as inefficient and needlessly risky, but this Dravok was going to die anyway. What harm could come from letting the human try? If you are injured, it will not be the station's responsibility, Nira warned. Understood. Ben placed his hand on the control panel. Lower the containment field. Just the front section. Are you insane? Captain Roth grabbed Ben's shoulder. That thing will rip you apart. He might, Ben admitted. But he won't if I do this right. Trust me. Nira made a gesture to her assistant. The Quellan hesitated, then slowly lowered the front section of the containment field. The energy barrier shimmered and disappeared. Nothing stood between Ben and the Dravok now except 3 meters of space and a very bad decision. Ben took a slow breath. He crouched down, making himself smaller, less threatening. He turned his body at an angle, avoiding direct confrontation. Then he did something that made every alien in the room question his sanity. He stepped into the containment area. The Dravok's head snapped toward him. Its lips curled back, revealing those massive teeth. A low growl rumbled from deep in its chest, a sound that vibrated through the floor. Every muscle in the creature's body tensed, ready to spring. Ben stopped moving. He kept his posture low and relaxed. He did not look directly at the Dravok's eyes. Instead, he gazed at a point just past the creature's shoulder. Then he spoke, his voice so quiet that Nira had to enhance her audio receptors to hear it. "Easy, buddy. Easy now." The Dravok stopped growling. The medical bay fell absolutely silent. Even the monitoring equipment seemed to quiet down. Every eye in the room focused on the human and the predator, separated by less than 2 meters of bloody floor. Ben took another small step forward. "Nobody here wants to hurt you. I know you're scared. I know everything hurts, but I can help. I promise." The Dravok's ears, previously flat against his skull, twitched forward. His breathing slowed slightly. His eyes, still wide with fear and pain, locked onto Ben's face. "That's it," Ben murmured, taking one more careful step. "Good boy. You're doing so good." He extended his hand, palm down, fingers loose, the universal gesture of peace among Earth's predators. The Dravok sniffed the air, taking in Ben's scent. His massive head lowered slightly, no longer in full attack position. Nira's analytical mind raced. This should not be working. Every behavioral model predicted attack. Every statistical analysis showed danger. Yet the Dravok was calming. How? Ben moved closer still, now within striking distance. One swipe of those claws would disembowel him. One bite would sever his spine. But he kept his movements slow, his voice steady, his presence calm. "I know you saved those people," Ben said softly. "Captain Roth told me. You're a good boy, aren't you? A brave boy. Got hurt protecting them." The Dravok's tail, previously lashing violently, settled to the floor. His breathing matched Ben's rhythm, deep and even. When Ben finally closed the distance and placed his hand gently on the creature's massive head, no one in the medical bay dared to breathe. "There we go," Ben whispered. "I've got you now. Let's get you fixed up." Dr. Nira watched in stunned silence as the human began his examination, hands moving confidently over the Dravok's body, while maintaining constant physical contact and soft verbal reassurance. The creature, which moments ago had been thrashing hard enough to break titanium restraints, now lay still under Ben's touch. Perhaps, Nira thought, there was something to human methods after all. Ben's fingers traced along the Dravok's ribcage, feeling for breaks and fractures. The creature flinched but did not pull away. His hand remained on the animal's head, thumb gently rubbing behind one ear. He had learned this trick from an old ranch hand back in Montana. Pressure points existed on almost every species. Find the right spot and even the most frightened animal would calm down. 3 broken ribs, Ben announced quietly. Punctured lung on the left side. That's causing the internal bleeding. Fractured front leg. Severe bruising along the spine. Dr. Nira moved closer to the containment area, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. "How are you determining this without scanning equipment?" "I can feel it." Ben's hands continued their examination. Bones grind when they're broken. Breathing sounds wet when there's blood in the lungs. His muscles are tight here, loose there. Bodies tell you everything if you know how to listen. That is highly inefficient compared to our medical scanners. Maybe. Ben glanced up at her. But scanners don't build trust. He's letting me touch him because he knows I'm trying to help. If I strapped him down and started running machines over him, he'd panic again. The Dravok whined softly, a sound that seemed impossible from such a massive predator. Ben immediately returned his attention to the creature, pressing his forehead against the animal's skull in a gesture Nira found bizarre, but somehow appropriate. "I know it hurts," Ben murmured. "We're going to fix it. I promise." Captain Roth watched from outside the containment field, his rocky face showing something like wonder. "I've transported animals for 20 years. Never seen anything like this. Humans have a reputation," said one of the Quellan assistants. "They bond with predators. Keep them in their homes. It is considered strange by most species." "Strange but effective," Nira admitted. She activated her datapad, beginning to record observations. This would make an excellent research paper if they all survived. Dr. Foster, what supplies do you require? Ben ran through a mental list. Bone stabilizers, tissue regeneration gel, cellular repair nanites, and a drainage tube for the lung. Also, I need someone to bring me a blanket. A blanket? Nira's mandibles clicked in confusion. For what purpose? He's going into shock. Body temperature is dropping. Feel his nose. It should be warm and slightly damp. Right now it's cold and dry. Nira extended her sensory appendages, touching the Dravok's snout. Ben was correct. How had the human noticed such a small detail? Bring the requested items, Nira ordered her staff. Quickly. While they waited, Ben continued talking to the Dravok in that same soft, steady voice. He told the creature about Earth, about his clinic in the mountains, about a wolf-dog mix he had saved years ago. The story seemed pointless to Nira, but the Dravok's eyes never left Ben's face. The animal was listening, truly listening. Why do you speak to him? Nira asked. He cannot understand your words. He understands my tone, Ben replied. And my intention. Animals don't need words to know if someone cares about them. They feel it. A medical assistant approached with the supplies, setting them carefully at the edge of the containment field. No one wanted to enter the area except Ben. Another assistant tossed a thermal blanket, which Ben caught and draped over the Dravok's body. Okay, buddy, this next part is going to hurt, Ben said, arranging the supplies within reach. But I need you to stay still for me. Can you do that? The Dravok huffed out a breath, eyes still fixed on Ben. I'll take that as a yes. Ben picked up the drainage tube. Dr. Nira, I need you to guide me. My scans won't be as precise as yours. Nira hesitated. Enter the containment field with an injured predator? Every instinct screamed against it. But the human had done it. If his soft, fragile body could take the risk, what excuse did she have? She stepped through the barrier. The Dravok's head swiveled toward her, lips pulling back slightly. Ben's hand immediately pressed firmer against the creature's skull. Hey, no. She's here to help. She's a friend. Ben's voice held a note of command now, gentle but firm. Be nice. Impossibly, the Dravok relaxed again. Nira activated her medical scanner, hands trembling slightly. Insertion point is 7 centimeters below the 4th rib, angle 15 degrees toward the spine. Got it? Ben sterilized the area, then looked into the Dravok's eyes. Deep breath for me, buddy. He inserted the drainage tube with practiced efficiency. The Dravok yelped and jerked, but Ben's other hand stayed steady on the creature's head, and his voice never wavered. I know. Almost done. You're being so brave. Blood and fluid drained from the punctured lung. The Dravok's breathing immediately improved, becoming deeper and less labored. Remarkable, Nira whispered. He trusted you enough to endure that pain without fighting. Trust goes both ways, Ben said, already preparing the bone stabilizer. I trust him not to hurt me. He trusts me not to hurt him more than necessary. That's the deal. Over the next hour, Ben worked steadily on the Dravok's injuries. He set the broken leg, sealed the rib fractures with bone stabilizer, and applied tissue regeneration gel to the worst bruises. Through it all, he maintained constant physical contact with the creature. One hand always touched the Dravok's body, providing reassurance and comfort. Nira assisted, fascinated by the human's methods. He worked by feel as much as by sight, trusting his instincts in ways no Altherian ever would. He talked constantly, explaining each procedure to the Dravok as if the creature could understand medical terminology. And perhaps in some way it did. The animal remained calm, allowing treatments that should have been impossible without heavy sedation. Heart rate stabilizing, reported the Quellen assistant monitoring vitals. Blood pressure improving. Brain activity shows reduced stress markers. He's going to make it, Ben said, relief clear in his voice. He stroked the Dravok's head. You're going to be fine, buddy. The Dravok made a sound somewhere between a purr and a rumble, pressing his massive head against Ben's chest. The human laughed and wrapped both arms around the creature's neck in an embrace that should have been fatal. Captain Roth shook his head in amazement. I've never seen a Dravok act like that, ever. Because no one ever tried, Ben replied simply. Everyone sees the teeth and claws and decides they're too dangerous. But underneath all that, he's just a scared animal who needed help. Nira stored her datapad, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Your methods are highly unconventional, Dr. Foster. But they work. Indeed they do. Nira looked at the Dravok, now resting peacefully under Ben's continued touch. I believe I have much to learn from you, human. Ben smiled. And I've got a lot to learn about alien species. Maybe we can teach each other. The Dravok's tail thumped weakly against the floor, a sign of contentment. Outside the containment field, the medical staff began to disperse, murmuring among themselves about what they had witnessed. Word would spread quickly across the station. The human veterinarian had done the impossible. He had healed the unhealable, calmed the uncalmable, and survived contact with one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. And he had done it all by simply caring. 2 days passed before Ben allowed himself to leave the recovery bay. He had slept on the floor next to the Dravok, one hand resting on the creature's side, monitoring each breath and heartbeat. Dr. Nira had called it excessive. Ben called it necessary. Your patient is stable, Nira pointed out, reviewing the medical readouts. There is no logical reason for you to remain here. He gets stressed when I leave, Ben replied, scratching behind the Dravok's ear. The creature's tail thumped against the floor in response. Last time I went to get food, his heart rate spiked 30%. That is because he has formed an attachment to you. It is temporary. Maybe. Ben watched the Dravok's eyes track his movements. Or maybe he just knows who helped him when everyone else gave up. Nira's mandibles clicked. A gesture Ben had learned meant she was thinking hard about something. I have been studying Earth's history with predatory species. Your relationship with canines is particularly fascinating. We've lived alongside wolves for thousands of years, Ben said. Eventually, some of them became dogs, became family. Most species in the galaxy have never attempted such bonds. We domesticated food animals, creatures that posed no threat. The concept of befriending an apex predator is foreign to us. That's because you think of it as dominance. It's not. It's partnership. Ben looked up at her. Wolves didn't become dogs because we forced them. They chose to stay with us because we offered something they needed. Safety, food, companionship. We got the same things back. Both species benefited. And you believe this principle applies to all creatures? Every animal wants the same basic things. Food, safety, and someone who understands them. Doesn't matter if they're from Earth or the other side of the galaxy. Before Nira could respond, alarms blared throughout the medical bay. Her data pad lit up with an emergency alert. Incoming transport. Critical patient. Species Talvex. Ben stood quickly. What's a Talvex? Reptilian, cold-blooded, native to a high-gravity world. They are extremely difficult to treat due to biological incompatibilities with most medical equipment. Nira was already moving toward the emergency entrance. They are also known for aggression when injured. Sounds familiar. Ben gave the Dravok one last pat. Stay here, buddy. I'll be back. The Dravok whined but settled down on his blanket, watching Ben leave with sad eyes. The emergency bay doors opened with a hiss. A transport team wheeled in a containment unit, twice the size of the one that had held the Dravok. Inside, a creature that looked like a cross between a crocodile and a dragon thrashed weakly against restraints. Its scales were dull and cracked, a sign of severe dehydration. One leg hung at an unnatural angle. Behind the transport team walked a tall Talvex in formal robes, his scales a deep emerald green compared to the patient's sickly gray. His eyes, cold and reptilian, fixed on Ben with obvious distrust. You are the human, he stated flatly. Dr. Ben Foster. Yes, I am Keeper Voss. This is Stryker. My companion. The word companion came out stiffly, as if Voss was not used to saying it. He has been ill for 6 cycles. 3 different medical facilities refused to treat him. Why? Ben approached the containment unit, studying the Talvex inside. They say his biology is incompatible with their methods. They say he is too dangerous. They say many things. Voss's voice held barely contained anger. But I heard what you did with the Dravok. My people do not believe in such bonds, but I am desperate. Stryker is dying. Ben looked at Nira. What do you know about Talvex biology? They require specific temperature ranges. Too cold and they become dormant. Too hot and their organs fail. Standard medical equipment does not account for this. Nira pulled up data on her pad. They are also believed to be solitary creatures with no social bonding instincts. Believed to be, Ben repeated. But nobody really knows for sure, do they? Our studies suggest studies can be wrong. Ben turned to Keeper Voss. Tell me about Stryker. Not medical stuff. What's he like? What does he do when he's healthy? Voss blinked, clearly surprised by the question. He hunts. He basks in the thermal pools near my home. He tolerates my presence. Just tolerates? A long pause. He brings me his kills sometimes. Leaves them at my door. I assumed it was instinct. Or he was sharing food with someone he cared about. Ben smiled slightly. Can I approach him? He will bite. He bit the last 3 veterinarians. I'll take that risk. Ben waited for Nira to open the containment field, then stepped inside. Stryker's eyes, dull with illness, tracked Ben's movement. His mouth opened slightly, showing rows of sharp teeth. A warning hiss escaped his throat. Ben crouched down, making himself smaller. Hey there, Stryker. I know you feel terrible. Let me help. He reached out slowly, palm forward. The Talvex snapped at his hand, missing by inches. Ben didn't flinch. I get it. You're scared and sick and nothing makes sense right now. Ben kept his voice calm and steady. But I promise I'm not here to hurt you. Stryker hissed again, but weaker this time. Ben noticed the creature's breathing was shallow, labored. His scales, which should have been smooth and glossy, looked dry and brittle. Classic signs of dehydration and malnutrition. But there was something else. Something the other vets had missed. Ben placed his hand on the floor near Stryker's head. His palm, warm with human body heat, rested there. The Talvex stopped hissing. His eyes focused on Ben's hand with sudden intensity. Nira, Ben said quietly, what's the temperature in this room? Standard station temperature. 22 degrees. And what temperature does a Talvex need? 35 to 40 degrees for optimal function. So Stryker has been cold this entire time. 6 cycles of being too cold to properly digest food, too cold to heal, too cold to do anything but survive. Ben looked at Keeper Voss. He's not dying from injury. He's dying from being cold. Voss stepped closer to the containment field. The other facilities said temperature was irrelevant, that his symptoms indicated organ failure caused by temperature stress. Ben kept his hand near Stryker, letting the creature feel the warmth. Reptiles on Earth shut down when they get too cold. Everything slows down. Digestion stops. Healing stops. They just exist in a state of slow death until something warm comes along. Stryker's head moved slightly, leaning toward Ben's hand. Not threatening now, seeking. He's lonely, Ben realized aloud. Talvex are cold-blooded. They can't generate their own heat. On their homeworld, they probably huddle together for warmth. But you keep him alone, Voss, because everyone says Talvex are solitary. That is our way. Your way is killing him. Ben's voice was gentle but firm. He doesn't need medicine. He needs warmth and companionship. He needs you. Keeper Voss stood silent, his scales shifting color slightly with emotion. My people do not form attachments. Maybe it's time they did. Ben extended his other hand toward Stryker. The Talvex pressed his snout against Ben's palm, absorbing the heat. Come here, Voss, let him feel you. He's dying because he's cold and alone. You're his keeper. Keep him. Slowly, Voss entered the containment field. He knelt beside Ben, movements uncertain. He had never been this close to Stryker without barriers between them. His hand trembled as he reached out and placed it on the Talvex's head. Stryker made a sound, something between a purr and a rumble. He pressed his body against Voss, seeking the warmth of contact. He knows you, Ben said softly. He's been waiting for you to see him. Keeper Voss's eyes, usually so cold and reptilian, showed something new. Something that looked like understanding. What do I do? First, we get his temperature up. Nira, can we adjust the environmental controls in this bay? Yes, but it will be uncomfortable for warm-blooded species. I'll deal with it. Set it to 38 degrees. Then bring thermal blankets, heating pads, and warm fluids for hydration. Ben looked at Voss. And you stay with him. Talk to him. Let him know he's not alone anymore. As the room temperature began to rise and Stryker's scales slowly regained their color, Ben thought about all the creatures across the galaxy that suffered not from illness or injury, but from loneliness, from species that forgot how to connect, how to care, how to see each other as more than just animals or resources. Maybe that was humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology or advanced medicine, just the simple understanding that every creature, no matter how strange or dangerous, deserved to be seen as someone worth saving. News traveled fast across Station Harmony. Within a week, Ben had become something of a legend. Crew members pointed him out in hallways. Other veterinarians asked questions about his methods. And most importantly, creatures that other facilities had given up on started arriving at the station. Dr. Nira found herself redesigning entire sections of the medical bay to accommodate Ben's unusual requirements. Temperature-controlled rooms for cold-blooded species, soft lighting for creatures with sensitive eyes, even a section with actual dirt and plants for animals that needed to feel ground beneath their feet instead of metal. "This is highly irregular," Nira commented, watching Ben install a water feature in one of the recovery rooms. "Station regulations require sterile environments. Some creatures need nature more than they need sterile," Ben replied, adjusting the flow of the fountain. "Besides, clean and sterile aren't the same thing. This water is filtered and purified. It just looks and sounds natural." A small bird-like creature chirped from a nearby perch, its feathers slowly growing back after severe stress-induced molting. 3 weeks ago, its owner had brought it to 5 different vets. All of them had prescribed medication. None of them had asked why the creature was stressed. Ben had spent 10 minutes with the owner and figured it out. The creature was from a forest world with constant ambient sound, wind, water, animal calls. Its owner kept it in a silent apartment. The bird was going insane from the quiet. Now it lived in a room with running water, soft nature sounds, and recorded calls from its own species. The feathers were growing back nicely. 17 successful treatments in 7 days, Nira said, checking her data pad. "Your success rate is unprecedented." "Because I'm not treating symptoms. I'm treating causes." Ben tested the water temperature with his hand. "Most vets see a sick animal and ask what's wrong with it. I ask, what does it need? The distinction seems minor. It's everything." Ben dried his hands and sat on a bench, gesturing for Nira to join him. "Look, your medical knowledge is way beyond mine. You understand alien biology in ways I never will. But you're thinking like a mechanic. Find the broken part, fix the broken part, done. And you do not? I think like a friend. What's wrong? What hurts? What are you missing? What makes you happy?" Ben smiled slightly. "Animals aren't machines. You can't just repair them. You have to understand them." Nira's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "I have been documenting your methods. I would like to present them to the Galactic Veterinary Council." "Really? Your success rate speaks for itself. However, I foresee resistance. Many species view emotional attachment to patients as inefficient. They will argue that your methods require too much time, too many resources. They're wrong." Ben stood, checking on the bird creature. It hopped closer to him, tilting its head curiously. He offered his finger, and it stepped onto his hand without fear. "Yeah, I spend more time with each patient, but they heal faster and need less medication. That saves time and resources in the long run. I will include that data in my presentation." Nira paused. "The council meets in 3 months. I would like you to attend." "Me? I'm just a vet from Earth. You are the vet who healed a Dravok with nothing but touch and words. The vet who saved a Talvex by teaching its keeper to care. The vet who—" Nira's datapad beeped urgently. She checked it, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Emergency. Multiple casualties incoming." Ben's expression shifted instantly from relaxed to focused. "What happened?" "Colony transport ship. Engine malfunction. They evacuated, but the animals in their cargo bay were exposed to zero gravity and extreme cold for 6 hours before rescue." Nira was already moving toward the emergency bay. 53 creatures from various species, all suffering from trauma, hypothermia, and gravity sickness. 53? Ben ran alongside her. "We can't treat that many. Not fast enough." "I know." Nira's voice held frustration. "Standard protocol is triage. Save who we can. Humanely terminate the rest." "No." Ben grabbed her shoulder, stopping her. "There has to be another way." "There is not enough time." "Then we make time." An idea formed in Ben's mind. Crazy, but possible. "The survivors have keepers, right? Owners who care about them?" "Yes, but they are not trained. Neither was Keeper Voss, and look at Stryker now." Ben's eyes lit up with excitement. "We train them. Right now. Quick and simple. Teach them what to look for, what to do, how to comfort their own animals while we handle the critical cases." Nira stared at him. "That is insane. They have no medical knowledge. They don't need medical knowledge. They need to know how to be present, how to be calm, how to let their animals know they're safe." Ben was already heading toward the docking bay. "Trust me, Nira, please." For a long moment, Nira stood still, her analytical mind running through scenarios and probabilities. Every logical calculation said this plan would fail. But logic had said Ben couldn't heal the Dravok. Logic had said Stryker was beyond saving. Logic had been wrong before. Very well, she decided. But if this fails, it won't. Ben smiled with a confidence he didn't quite feel. Come on, we've got work to do. The docking bay was chaos. 53 creatures in various states of distress filled temporary containment fields. Some thrashed and screamed. Others lay too still, barely breathing. The sounds of animal suffering echoed off the metal walls, a symphony of pain and fear. Their keepers huddled nearby. 27 beings from a dozen different species, all looking lost and helpless. These were colonists, families who had brought their beloved companions and work animals to start a new life on a distant world. Now they watched those animals suffer and did not know how to help. Ben climbed onto a cargo crate, making himself visible to the crowd. Everyone listen to me. I'm Dr. Ben Foster. I'm going to save your animals, but I need your help, all of you. A human woman pushed forward, tears streaming down her face. Please, my daughter's pet is dying. A falcon from Andros II. She won't eat, won't move. Where is your daughter? On the transport still. She's only 8. I didn't want her to see. Go get her. Right now. Ben's voice was gentle but urgent. That falcon needs to hear her voice, feel her touch. No medicine I have is stronger than love. The woman hesitated, then ran toward the transport ship. Ben turned to the rest of the crowd. Here's what you need to understand. Your animals aren't just hurt. They're terrified. They've been cold and weightless and alone for 6 hours, thinking they were going to die. Right now, they need to know they're safe. They need to know you're here. A tall insectoid keeper raised a limb, but the medical staff said to stay back. I'm the medical staff now, and I'm saying get close. I'm saying be there for them. Ben pointed at Dr. Nira. Dr. Nira and I will handle the critical injuries, but there are 53 patients and 2 of us. We can't be everywhere at once, so you're going to be our partners. He spent the next 10 minutes teaching them the basics, how to read body language, how to speak in calming tones, how to recognize signs of shock versus signs of pain, how to simply be present without hovering anxiously. The lessons were simple, stripped down to essential principles that any species could understand. Remember, Ben concluded, you don't need to be doctors. You just need to be what every scared animal needs most, someone who cares. The keepers dispersed to their animals, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence. Ben watched a young Quellan male approach his injured pack animal, speaking softly in his own language. The animal's ears perked up at the familiar voice. Its breathing steadied. Across the bay, an elderly Grensic female sat beside her companion creature, singing a low, rumbling song. The creature's eyes, previously wild with panic, focused on her. Its thrashing stopped. The human woman returned with her daughter. The 8-year-old girl took one look at her falcon and burst into tears. She ran to the containment field, pressing her hands against it. Whiskers! I'm here. Don't die, please don't die. The falcon's head lifted. Its eyes, glazed with shock, suddenly cleared. It dragged itself toward the girl's voice, toward the small hands pressed against the barrier. Ben nodded to Nira. Lower that field. She will be injured. She won't. Ben's voice was certain. Lower it, the field dropped. The girl fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around the falcon's neck. The creature, which had been dying moments before, purred and pressed close to her. Its body temperature began to rise. Its breathing deepened. All across the bay, similar scenes played out. Animals responding to familiar voices, bodies relaxing under gentle touch, fear being replaced by trust. Ben and Nira moved through the chaos, treating critical injuries, administering medication, monitoring vitals. But they weren't doing it alone anymore. The keepers assisted, held their animals steady for procedures, provided comfort during painful treatments. Hours later, as station lights dimmed to simulate night cycle, Ben collapsed onto a bench. His clothes were covered in various fluids. His arms ached from holding animals still. His voice was hoarse from giving instructions. But all 53 creatures were stable. All 53 were going to live. Dr. Nira sat beside him, her usually pristine medical uniform equally stained. That should not have worked. But it did. Yes. She looked at the recovery bay where keepers sat with their animals, maintaining the vigil Ben had taught them. You were right. Love is medicine. Ben smiled tiredly. It's the oldest medicine there is. The Galactic Veterinary Council met in a space station that orbited neutral territory between 12 different systems. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall, a room designed to accommodate beings that ranged from massive rock-like Grensic to tiny energy-based luminals. Dr. Nira stood at the central podium, her mandibles clicking nervously. She had presented at council meetings before, but never about something this controversial. Around the hall she could see skeptical expressions on faces that had faces, and feel doubt radiating from those that did not. Distinguished colleagues, she began, her translator broadcasting her words in 47 languages simultaneously. I present data on a new approach to veterinary medicine, an approach that challenges our fundamental assumptions about animal treatment. Screens around the hall lit up with statistics. Success rates, recovery times, patient satisfaction metrics. The numbers were impressive, undeniable. But Nira knew numbers alone would not convince this audience. These results were achieved by Dr. Ben Foster, a human veterinarian currently stationed at Orbital Facility Harmony. His methods center on emotional connection rather than pure medical intervention. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. A Krovan representative, his crystalline body refracting light in colors that indicated disapproval, spoke up. Emotional connection? We have extensive research proving that clinical detachment produces optimal results. Your research is based on Krovan physiology, Nira countered. And Krovan do not form emotional bonds with animals, humans do. And the data shows it works. For humans, perhaps, another voice called out. This one belonged to a Quellan elder. But can such methods be taught to species who lack human emotional capacity? They can. Nira activated a video feed. Observe. The screen showed footage from the colony transport emergency. 53 dying animals, 27 terrified keepers of various species. Then Ben's quick training session. Then the transformation as keepers learned to comfort their own companions. Every keeper you see learned these techniques in under 10 minutes, Nira explained. The Quellan male with the pack animal had never touched his creature before, maintaining traditional distance as his culture prescribes. The Grensic female had always relied on automated feeding systems, yet both successfully provided comfort that aided in healing. Another representative stood. This one was human. An older woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Dr. Nira, I'm Dr. Patricia Webb from the Earth Veterinary Coalition. While I appreciate your enthusiasm for my colleagues' methods, I must point out that human techniques are controversial, even among humans. Many of us believe in maintaining professional boundaries. And how successful are those boundaries? Ben's voice carried across the hall. Every head turned. Ben stood at the back of the assembly, still wearing his stained work uniform because he had come directly from a surgery. Beside him, walking on a leash like it was the most natural thing in the world, was the Dravok. Security immediately reached for their weapons. Alerts flashed. A massive predator in the council chambers was a violation of every safety protocol. Stand down, ordered the council chair, an ancient being whose species Nira could not identify. Let the human speak. Ben walked down the center aisle, the Dravok moving calmly at his side. Every representative leaned away as they passed. Fear filled the room like a physical presence. You're all scared, Ben observed, stopping at the podium. That's good. Healthy fear keeps you safe, but fear without understanding is just prejudice. He gestured to the Dravok. This is Duke. 3 weeks ago, he was dying. Dr. Nira wanted to euthanize him because he was too dangerous to treat. And she was right to think that way. Your protocols, your training, your entire medical philosophy is built on logical risk assessment. Duke was a risk. Better to eliminate him than endanger staff. Ben placed his hand on Duke's massive head. The Dravok leaned into the touch, eyes half closed in contentment. But I looked at Duke and saw something your risk assessment missed. I saw fear. I saw pain. I saw a creature who wanted to live but didn't know if anyone cared enough to help him. Ben's voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the hall, so I helped. Not because I'm braver than you, not because I'm a better doctor, but because I was willing to see Duke as someone worth saving instead of something worth fearing. Dr. Webb stood again. That's beautiful sentiment, Dr. Foster. But sentiment doesn't change the fact that you could have died. That creature could have killed you. He could have, Ben agreed. But he didn't, and do you know why? Because I gave him a reason not to. I showed him that not everything in the universe wanted to hurt him. I proved that trust was possible. You cannot build galactic medical policy on trust, a Krovan representative argued. We require protocols, procedures, measurable standards. Then measure this. Ben pulled up his datapad, projecting statistics onto the main screens. Since arriving at Station Harmony, I've treated 237 patients. 0 staff injuries, 0 patient deaths. Average recovery time 40% faster than galactic standard. Patient stress levels 70% lower, and medication usage down by half because animals that aren't scared don't need as many sedatives. The numbers spoke for themselves. The assembly fell silent. I'm not saying emotional connection should replace medical knowledge, Ben continued. Dr. Nira knows more about alien biology than I ever will. But I know animals. And every animal, whether it's from Earth or a planet I can't even pronounce, wants the same things. They want to feel safe. They want to know someone cares. They want to be treated like individuals instead of problems to solve. A small voice spoke up. How do you teach this? Everyone turned. The speaker was a young Altherian, barely adult by their species standards. I want to be a veterinarian, but I am not human. I do not feel emotions the way you do. Can I still learn your methods? Ben smiled at the young alien. What's your name? Tick, do you want to help animals? Very much. Then you already have what you need. Ben gestured for Tick to approach. The young Altherian hesitated, mandibles clicking nervously, then walked forward. Put your hand on Duke's back. He will bite me. He won't, I promise. Just touch him gently. Tick extended a trembling appendage and lightly touched Duke's fur. The Dravok turned his head, looked at Tick, and made a soft, chuffing sound. You feel that? Ben asked. His fur is soft, warm, his heart beats fast. That's life. That's what you're protecting when you become a vet. Not just biological function or physical health. Life. Individual, precious, irreplaceable life. Ben looked at the assembly. Every species here can learn that. You don't need human emotions. You just need to care enough to try. Duke suddenly moved, causing Tick to jump back in alarm. But the Dravok simply laid down at Ben's feet and rolled onto his back, exposing his belly in ultimate trust. Several representatives gasped. Dravoks never show submission, whispered a xenobiologist in the front row. It's not in their behavioral programming. Maybe it wasn't in their programming because no one ever gave them a reason to trust, Ben replied. He knelt and rubbed Duke's belly. The massive predator's tail thumped against the floor, and he made sounds that could only be described as happy. The council chair spoke, its voice ancient and thoughtful. Dr. Foster, Dr. Nira, your proposal is highly irregular. However, the results cannot be dismissed. I move that we establish a pilot program. 10 stations across the galaxy will implement these emotional connection techniques. We will monitor results for 1 standard year. I second the motion, said Dr. Webb, standing. As much as it pains me to admit when I'm wrong, those numbers don't lie. Maybe it's time we remembered why we became veterinarians in the first place. Votes were cast. The motion passed with a significant majority. As the assembly dispersed, representatives approached Ben with questions. How could they adapt his methods to their species? What training would be required? Could he visit their stations to teach? Tick waited until the crowd thinned, then approached Ben again. Dr. Foster? Thank you for showing me, Duke. I think I understand now. Understand what? Why you do this work. It is not about being the best doctor. It is about being the doctor that every animal deserves. Ben smiled and placed a hand on Tick's shoulder. You're going to be a great vet, Tick. Duke stood and shook himself, then looked at Ben expectantly. Ben laughed. Yeah, buddy. Let's go home. As they left the assembly hall, Nira walked beside them. You realize what you have started? This will change everything. Good, Ben said simply. It's about time. Behind them, the Galactic Veterinary Council continued its session, but the tone had shifted. For the first time in centuries, they were talking not just about protocols and procedures, but about connection and care, about seeing animals as individuals worthy of love, not just patients requiring treatment. A revolution had begun, started by one human who understood that the best medicine wasn't found in drugs or technology. It was found in the simple act of looking at a frightened creature and saying, "Easy, buddy. I've got you." 1 year passed. Station Harmony had transformed from a standard veterinary facility into something unprecedented in galactic history. The modifications were visible from the moment ships docked. Where there had been cold metal and sterile lights, now there were gardens and water features. Where silence had ruled, now animal sounds mixed with soft music. Where fear had been the default, now calm prevailed. Ben stood in the central observation deck, watching the morning shift begin. Dr. Nira worked with a young Grensic who struggled to understand why touch mattered for a species that communicated through rock vibrations. Tick, now a certified veterinary assistant, demonstrated breathing techniques to a nervous Quellan intern. Keeper Voss had become a volunteer, teaching other Talvex keepers about the importance of warmth and companionship. Duke lay at Ben's feet, no longer wearing a leash because he no longer needed one. The Dravok had become Station Harmony's unofficial mascot and therapy animal. When a scared creature arrived, Duke would approach slowly and lie down nearby. Animals sensed his calm and grew calm themselves. Even the most aggressive patients settled in Duke's presence. "Dr. Foster?" A voice interrupted his thoughts. Ben turned to see Captain Roth, the Grensic who had first brought Duke to the station. "Captain, good to see you. I have news from the Galactic Council. The pilot program results are in." Ben's heart raced. The 10 stations that had implemented his methods would determine if emotional connection became standard practice or remained an experiment. Roth held up his data pad. "All 10 stations report success rates above 85%. Staff injury rates dropped by 60%. Animal stress markers decreased across all species. Recovery times improved by an average of 37%. Medication costs cut nearly in half." The captain paused. "Dr. Foster, you changed everything." "Not me, we did. Everyone who was willing to try something different. The council has voted. Your methods are now mandatory training for all veterinary facilities across the galaxy. They are calling it the Foster Protocol." Ben felt his throat tighten with emotion. I don't know what to say." "Say you will help implement it." Roth gestured around the observation deck. 50 stations have requested you specifically. They want to learn from the human who talks to animals. I can't leave Harmony. There's too much work here. Then we will bring the work to you." A new voice joined the conversation. Ben turned to see the council chair from the assembly, its form shimmering as it materialized via holographic projection. "Station Harmony will become the Galactic Center for Veterinary Excellence. We will send students from across the galaxy to train here. You will teach them what you know. But I'm just one person, which is why I have authorized the creation of a teaching facility." The chair gestured, and blueprints appeared on the observation windows. "An entire new section of the station, dedicated to training. We are also recruiting 50 human veterinarians from Earth to assist with instruction." Ben stared at the plans. Classrooms, practice facilities, recovery bays designed around emotional connection rather than pure efficiency. It was everything he had dreamed about but never thought possible. "There is more," the chair continued. "A ship arrived this morning. Cargo of considerable importance. What cargo? See for yourself." Ben made his way to the docking bay, Duke padding beside him. When the bay doors opened, his breath caught. Inside were crates upon crates of animals. But not just any animals. These were creatures from the Lyrian Conservation Fleet, the last breeding populations of 17 endangered species. A Lyrian official approached, her blue skin marked with concern. "Dr. Foster, we have a crisis. These species are endangered because they cannot breed in captivity. Stress levels too high. Traditional facilities have failed. But we heard what you did with the colony transport animals. We need that miracle again." Ben walked among the crates, creatures huddled in corners, eyes wide with fear. Some were aggressive, lashing out at the barriers. Others were catatonic, having given up hope. These animals had been moved from facility to facility, poked and prodded, studied and measured. They had been treated as specimens, not individuals. "How long until breeding season ends?" Ben asked. 6 weeks. If they do not mate by then, we lose another year. Several species do not have another year." Ben looked at Duke. The Dravok met his eyes and seemed to understand. "Nira, Tick, I need you here. Captain Roth, can you contact all the keepers from the colony transport and get me Keeper Voss?" Within an hour, they had assembled a team. Not just veterinarians, but keepers who had learned Ben's methods. Colonists who had saved their own animals. Volunteers who wanted to help. Here's what we're going to do, Ben explained to the assembled group. We're going to give these animals what they need most. Not medicine, not perfect conditions. Family. They worked in shifts around the clock. Each endangered creature was given a dedicated keeper, who stayed with them constantly, spoke to them, touched them, learned their individual needs and preferences. The Larian officials protested that this was not scientific, not measurable, not proper procedure. Ben ignored them and kept working. Duke became central to the effort. The Dravok would visit each animal daily, demonstrating calm and trust. Animals that had been too stressed to eat would accept food in Duke's presence. Creatures that had been aggressive would settle down when the Dravok laid nearby. He is teaching them, Nira observed one day, watching Duke interact with a fearful herbivore, teaching them that this place is safe. Animals learn from each other, Ben replied. If Duke trusts us, they know they can too. Week by week, the transformation occurred. Stress levels dropped. Appetites returned. Animals began engaging with their keepers, showing personality and preference. They stopped seeing themselves as prisoners and started seeing themselves as protected. When breeding season arrived, the Larian officials watched their monitors in disbelief. 14 of the 17 species successfully mated. The 3 that did not were not stressed or afraid. They simply were not compatible with their available partners. Natural selection, not trauma. This is impossible, whispered the Larian chief scientist. Decades of failure and you achieve success in 6 weeks? It's not impossible, Ben said, watching a pair of rare Kelvin birds perform their mating dance. You just had to ask them what they needed instead of telling them what they should want. 9 months later, Station Harmony celebrated the birth of the first generation of these endangered species born in captivity in over 50 years. The babies thrived because their parents thrived. The cycle of life continued because someone had cared enough to see these animals as living beings worthy of love, not just data points in a conservation database. Ben held a tiny Kelvin chick in his palm, so small and fragile. Its parents watched from a nearby perch, unafraid because they knew Ben meant no harm. The chick chirped softly. Easy, buddy, Ben whispered. Welcome to the galaxy. Dr. Nira approached, her mandibles clicking in what Ben had learned was the Altherian expression of deep satisfaction. The training facility opens next month. We have 300 applicants from 40 species. 300? Ben looked up in surprise. Your revolution is spreading, Ben. Across the galaxy, veterinarians are remembering why they chose this profession. Not for the science, though science matters. Not for the prestige, though recognition is pleasant. They chose it because they wanted to help creatures who cannot help themselves. Tick joined them, now wearing the official badge of a certified veterinary technician. Dr. Foster, there is a communication for you. From Earth. Ben handed the chick back to its parents and activated his datapad. His sister's face appeared, smiling with pride. Ben, I heard the news. They're teaching your methods in every veterinary school on Earth now. You did it. You changed the whole galaxy. Not just me, Ben protested. It took everyone, don't be modest. You started this. You looked at a dying animal and decided that fear would not stop you from trying. That's courage. That's what humanity should be known for. After the call ended, Ben stood quietly, thinking about the past year. He thought about Duke saved from euthanasia and now saving others. About Stryker no longer alone and cold. About 53 colony animals who had lived because their keepers learned to care. About endangered species breeding for the first time in decades. About 300 students coming to learn that medicine was more than procedures and protocols. Duke nudged Ben's hand, demanding attention. Ben smiled and scratched behind the Dravok's ears. You started this too, buddy. By trusting a strange human who didn't know when to quit. Night cycle approached, dimming the station lights to simulate planetary darkness. The medical bays grew quiet as animals settled for sleep. Keepers sat beside their patients, maintaining the vigil that Ben had taught them. In every room, across every ward, creatures rested peacefully because they knew someone cared. Ben made his final rounds, checking on patients, speaking softly to each one. Some were exotic creatures from distant worlds. Others were common animals that had been abandoned or abused. It did not matter. Each one received the same care, the same attention, the same love. In the central garden that had been installed at Ben's request, a small memorial stood. Carved into stone were simple words. Every creature, no matter how small or strange or dangerous, deserve someone who will look at them and say, "Easy, buddy, I've got you." Below the inscription were listed the names of animals that had been saved at Station Harmony. The list grew daily. Thousands of names, thousands of lives that would have been lost if someone had not cared enough to try. Ben sat on a bench, Duke's head resting in his lap. Around him, the station hummed with life. Not just the mechanical life of technology, but real life. Animals breathing, moving, healing, growing stronger because they were not alone. "What do you think, Duke?" Ben asked quietly. "Did we make a difference?" Duke's tail thumped against the ground. His eyes, once wild with fear and pain, now gazed at Ben with complete trust and contentment. That was answer enough. The galaxy had learned a lesson that seemed so simple, yet had taken so long to understand. Technology could not solve every problem. Procedures could not heal every wound. Sometimes the best medicine in the universe was just a gentle hand, a soft voice, and someone willing to say those magic words. "Easy, buddy. I've got you, and mean it."